Hey guys, Philip Nelson here with a special edition of the Philip Nelson podcast, live from Nelco Comics here in San Antonio, Texas. And we have a very exciting guest today. And we're basically talking about a really cool upcoming appearance we're going to have at Nelco Comics here in San Antonio this weekend. And so at that point, I would like to bring you the legendary Billy Tan. Billy, I'm going to talk about you just for a minute. You don't even have to talk about yourself. Billy is one of my favorite comic book artists. I discovered his work on New Avengers when he was doing the Dark Reign series, and then I started digging in deep. And Billy worked for Top Cow for a long time, worked on some of their top titles like Witchblade, and I think, you did Tomb Raider as well, didn't you? You can just nod, Billy. We'll talk about this in a minute. And then he went on to Marvel with X-23, which is first title at Marvel, which is Wolverine's basically clone daughter, which is one of my favorite comic books of all time. And then went on to work on X-Men Legends, New Avengers, tons of Marvel stuff. Then went on to DC and worked with Green Lantern. But Billy, thank you so much for being here today. We're super excited to have you.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. I actually didn't know it's a podcast. It's a live podcast. Now you're making me really, really nervous.
It's good to be nervous. It keeps you on your toes. So Billy, what I'd like to talk to you about just for fun, before we get into talking about your career, you're going to be here in San Antonio at Nelco Comics this upcoming weekend. And Billy is like no other artist I've ever met. When we scheduled him to come in to do the signing, he was like, I want to help your comic shop. I was like, really? And he goes, yeah. He goes, so anybody that spends $100 at the comic shop while he's here, he's going to do a free sketch for, which that's worth how much do you normally charge for sketches, Billy?
Man, I don't even remember, like $100.
150. That's what it's worth. At least 150. So you buy $100 worth of comic books, and you get Billy Tan. Basically, you're paying $100 for a Billy Tan sketch, and getting $100 worth of free comic books. So it's like a crazy deal. So when he said that, I was like blown away. He really does have a passion for helping local comic shops because as an artist, who buys your books, right? So, Billy, let me ask you a question. We're just going to kind of go back to the Top Cow days. I know you're from the Philippines. How did you? Where are you from?
Malaysia.
Malaysia. So definitely not from the Philippines, Malaysia. So I don't know you're from the Philippines. I know you're from Malaysia. Sorry about that. Different country.
I know who you're mixing up with. Philip Tan, that's who you're mixing up with.
Is he from the Philippines?
Yes, he is. No, it's normal. Everybody got us mixed up all the time.
Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. But hey, I'm an idiot. So what do you expect? So you're from Malaysia. How did you break into the U.S. comic scene?
So I broke in through the talent search that Top Cow Production had. It was quite early on. In the beginning, I really have no clue how to break in. I just fresh out of college. I try to, how do I break in? There's no internet. I mean, not like the social media today where you can show a lot of your artwork. What I could do is I went to a small convention, like in a motel or something like that, and met some artists and try to get some pinpoint. But still, that doesn't get you, anywhere. So the school at that time, they had a field trip to New York. I was attending University of Kentucky at that time. So I went with the teacher to go to New York. And while they were visiting museum, I went to Marvel Studio. I went to Valiant. I didn't get anything done in Marvel Studio because I was pretty much clueless how to get in, how to make an appointment. I didn't make up any appointment. I just show up and demand the editor to look at my work. So needless to say, that was the wrong way, and I got kicked out. But Variant Comic. What's his name? What was it? Who's the president in Variant Comic at that time? Do you remember?
I do not remember.
Yeah, but they were able to look at my work, give me some pointer and inspiration. So I did that. I tried to improve myself. It took me like a couple months to get my work, to sharpen up my work. And at that time, Image has uh, was formed about 3 years now. At that time, so the top car was always looking for talent. So they have a talent search. So I submitted my stuff. I talked to David Wall, back then was the chief of editor. He gave me some pointer, and I improved. I sent in again and again, and they let me try it out a trading card, and I did that, and they said, hey, let's brought it in. I think was one of the first or second person that they brought in. I think a second person after Joe Benitez, and
So,
then
what book were you brought in on?
nothing. I was just like an intern, try it
Oh, so
out.
they were developing the talent.
Yes, it was just like a 3 months try it out, doing whatever that they need help on, whether it's inking assist. Back then was like for Brandon Peterson, or drawing background for Mark Silvestri, or just create something of myself, and that's how I broke in through the Marvel talent search.
So, what was the first published book that you ever did? What was that one that you finally made it to the newsstand on?
It was Codename Strike Force.
Codename Strike Force. Oh, really?
Yes.
How many copies did you go out and buy when it hit the newsstand? Did you buy them for everybody in your family?
Yes, totally. I think we got 3 copies. Every time they'll receive like boxes and boxes of free comics, I would just grab a bunch of free comics, and it was a really really exciting time
That
to be
is
able to work out there in the actual book that you can hold on. It was an incredible feeling.
what. So, what book? What was your first cover? And I know some of these questions we can look up on Wikipedia, but it's kind of fun to talk about it. So, like when you're working at Top Cow, getting published books out with Image and doing really fun, cool stuff. But what was that moment that you got the call when you were going to do your first cover?
I think
Do you
my
remember?
first cover, it was on Codename Strike Force too.
Really? So you moved
Yeah.
quick. You went straight into doing covers. That's pretty cool.
Yes, cover. Back then it was the whole thing, the whole book cover and the interiors. Same
Dang,
thing.
dude, you
I
didn't
mean,
you didn't waste any time.
there weren't many talent back then in Top Cow production. It was Joe Benitez. Joe Benitez was pretty slow. He would draw things, and then for weeks, and then he would go back, erase them, and redraw them. So I think I was pretty fast. That's why Mark Silvestri liked me. We're not talking about quality here, but I'm sort of fast. So
Fast is good, especially when you're trying to hit deadlines. So
yeah.
let's backtrack a little bit because you talked about going to University of Kentucky. You talked about doing the auditions and trying to get into comic books. So did you grow up in Malaysia or did you grow up in the U.S.?
I was in Malaysia until when I turned 18.
So you
Then
went to college at UK.
actually in Kansas. One of
Oh,
one of
University of Kansas, the other UK. I'm getting everything wrong today. I've insulted you twice in the first 5 minutes.
Oh, you got it right. You got it right. It was the first college I went to was in a very small town in the middle of United States. It's Hillsboro. It's called Tabor College. I was
Oh,
there
wow.
just uh, uh, like half a year or a year,
Okay.
and then transferred to University of Kentucky.
Okay, because University of Kansas they call UK as well. So I thought really, I said you're from the Philippines, you're from Malaysia. I said you're a University of Kansas guy, you're University of Kentucky guy. I hope I don't offend you anymore within the next 10 minutes. But so when you were in school, the question I really wanted to ask is, were you a comic book fan as a kid, or did you really discover comics when you came to the U.S.?
I was a comic book fan back then, but not American comics because we don't have many of those back then in Malaysia. Most of our comics from Hong Kong. Hong
Really?
Kong. Yeah, it's all the martial art comics and Japanese comic manga.
You got
We
you
have
so you got Hong Kong and Japanese comics, and that was the majority of what you read as a kid.
yes, and American comic was very hard to find. I
Wow.
would occasionally find some very old version like Clock and Dagger or things like that. You know, very old comics, and that was about it until I come to the state. Uh, I actually took notice when Image first started up. That's
Really?
when, yeah, that's when I actually pay more attention to American comics because of their you know they were using Photoshop for the first time to color, right? I think
Right.
yeah, before, all pretty much flat, and it was so flashy. Everything was so new, and I was and then I discovered Jim Lee, I discovered World's Potassium and Max Westry, totally blown me away. It was like, wow, you could do a comic book and it looks so artistically done. It's like a piece of artwork, and that sort of drove me into the comic world.
Well, those are some good inspirations. So, when you discovered Image, was it like after Spawn, or was it right when McFarlane was doing Spawn?
Yes, that's when McFarlane was doing Spawn. Uh, uh, we have everybody, all the Image guys, top guy was doing, they were all selling like hotcakes, all there were like 10 covers of each comics, if you remember that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that was crazy time, and that's when it was, and the comic shop owner was like, yeah, why don't you try it out? Give it a shot, and I start drawing American comics, try to understand the media, um, put on, some funny storyboard that I could think of with American characters in it. Um, yeah, that's how I got into it.
Well, I have to tell you, I have a fly buzzing around me here in my podcast studio. So if you see me doing this, I'm being attacked by a fly. So it's so professional, you have no idea. Um, but that's really cool because that was a milestone era in the comic books industry, because and you were there in the pioneering days of it, because you had, before Image Comics, you had independent books, but they didn't really have massive distribution. And then you have Todd McFarlane and Spawn basically changing everything. And you were the kid that came in and got it done, right? How old were
Yeah,
you
yeah,
when you started at Image and Top Cow?
yeah. I started. I believe like Image was 3 years, after I started. So
So you're like
they were.
21.
Oh, how old?
Yeah.
No. Actually, I was pretty old. I was like 23, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I
That's
was.
so cool. But that's such a pioneering era, and Image has just been so impactful on the whole comic books industry, just getting stories out that Marvel or DC would have never released. But I want to go a little bit into, how did you make the jump from Image to Marvel with X-23?
Yeah. So, I think my last book at Top Cow was Tomb Raider. It was a painted Tomb Raider. I decided I wanted to do a painted book. I don't know if anybody have seen that. It's a painted Tomb Raider, with watercolor, and that was my last book. And I don't think Top Cow had much book after that for me. And I think the same day that they told me that, CB Sabowski gave me a call and said that, hey, we have some project. After that, they know who I am, and they it was about 10 years. It took me 10 years in Top Cow, I believe, 7 or 10 years. And so they knew who I was, and they said, you want to be working with Chris Carl and Chris Yokes and Craig Carl on the X-23. Of course I have no idea what it is, what the X-23 is. So I was just happy that Marvel would call me and give me some project. I believe that David Wall, the chief of editor, they contacted C.B. Cebulski as well, said that Billy Tanner was available, and they called me right away the same day.
So when you started working on X-23, how much influence did they give you on the look and feel of the characters in that book? Were you given model sheets, or did they say give us a Laura Kinney? How did that process work with creating the art for that book?
They did not require me to give them a certain look, but they'll give me the design sheet. So, but the style wise, it's up to me. It will be up to the artist, and I think that's how it is everywhere. They won't tell you to draw a certain way how she is. You're free to interpret how she is.
So that book was written by Craig, correct?
Yeah, Craig Carl and.
So they both worked on the story together?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't realize that. So that with X-23, it's funny. I'm gonna confess something. As a comic book fan, I've been a comic book fan for many years, and I've always been a little annoyed when they come out and say, "Oh, we want to make a girl Thor," or a girl Vision, and it's just strictly just because they want it to be a girl. So when I heard about X-23, I didn't have very high expectations. I just thought it was going to be, okay, a girl Wolverine. But once I read that book, my mind was blown with what a fantastic story, and the art was gorgeous. That is in the last 20 years, I think, that X-23 has blown my mind more than any single book, because they made that story so believable in the Marvel Universe. Wolverine escapes and trashes the lab. They find his blood and then try to clone a Wolverine, but they only can make females because the Y chromosome is destroyed. I mean, they actually did a really good job of writing a story. So as an artist, when you read that story, did you geek out at all, or were you just like ready to just start drawing?
Well, I didn't know who she was. I know Wolverine, but I didn't know much about X-23, so I basically started drawing. But as the story proceeds, I felt like, wow, this is something. This is a character that doesn't talk. She didn't say a word. She basically, until the very end, that she says something. Otherwise, she would just be quiet and going through the story with her expression, which she didn't have much. Her expression was rather subtle. Her life is pretty sad. It's one of the most touching story or character that I've worked on. So yeah, it's incredible to have an opportunity, as not to say it was my first one, to be able to do such a touching story.
It's true. Your first Marvel book was an iconic story in the Marvel Universe. I mean, I don't think a lot of artists get that chance, and that's really cool that not only did you take it, but you did a fantastic job. Actually, over my shoulder, you can't see it in the camera, but your artwork I've got 2 pieces of your art hanging in my comic shop. I've got the cover from X-23 #1, and I also have a page from the New Avengers 48, when, all the superheroes are running around trying to find Luke Cage's kidnapped kid. Do you remember that book?
Yes.
And it's a page with Electro getting his butt kicked, Abomination, Miss Marvel, and that's how I discovered you as an artist, because I don't normally, I read comic books. I like comic books, but I don't really pay attention a lot. And I was at Dragon Con, and I just saw that I was looking through some original art, and I saw your page, and I was like, this is an amazing page. I was like, who is this artist? And the guy that was selling the art was like, oh, that's Billy Tan. I was like, what else has he done? So I've started looking at all the Billy Tan, and dude, everything you've done, just you really, I haven't seen any of your art that looks like you phoned it in. A lot of artists are just like, I got to make a deadline, but everything you've done just is so stylistic. And it's funny that you talk about your influences from the Japanese manga and the Korean comics, but your brush, the line work, it has a very unique Billy Tan look. So
Yes.
that wasn't a question. You didn't have, yeah. Yes is the answer to that. It does have a Billy Tan look. So, the next, because I know we're already going on 20 minutes, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I will give a shameless plug here right in the middle that Billy will be coming to San Antonio for a very brief, limited appearance this weekend. He'll be here from like 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock on Friday, June 7th. And then from Saturday morning, he'll be here from like 10 in the morning till noon. So only 2 hours on Saturday because he has a flight to catch. He is a road warrior who's flying in Friday morning, coming in to sign for everybody that shows up, do some sketches if you spend $100. He'll also be taking commissions. So if you do want him to draw something more elaborate, you can pay him to do that. Also, I'm really excited to announce this. Billy is also bringing in some original art that he will be selling at Nelco Comics, and so you can look through some of his original art. And I think if you don't come by some of his original art, you are insane. You have to have Billy Tan in your collection. The man is a stud. So that is Friday and Saturday, June 7th and 8th. Friday it'll be from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday only from 10 a.m. to 12 because we got to get him to the airport to make his flight back home. So, Billy, at that, we're going to talk about Marvel for one more question, and then we'll get into some of the DC, and then I want to finish up with what you're doing with your own properties. So, real quick, you finish up X-23, and you moved on to a lot of Marvel titles. Were there any of those titles that you just super geeked out on to work on? What was your favorite title you worked on? And you feel like I've made it when I've drawn this character?
Oh, there's so many. Uncanny X-Men, for one, that's a flagship title. Remember when Axel Alonso, the editor, called me. It's like, okay, I have Chris as well over the phone. So, okay, I didn't think much about it. And then he was asking, hey, do you want to do Uncanny X-Men? I said, sure. And then, it was Axel that say, going through all the conversation. I was like, okay, well, cool, that's awesome. And then Chris Claremont was over the phone, but he didn't say a word, and I didn't realize, I didn't know it was him because he didn't say a word. I just know Chris until the phone hung up, and then I'm like, wait a minute, there's somebody else there. Then Axel mentioned it was Chris. I said, that's Chris Claremont. So I was like sweating, cold sweat. I was like, oh my God, Chris was there. So
it's probably good that you didn't know he was there, right?
Yeah. So it was amazing. It's like, be able to, work with, Chris Claremont and then Brian Bendis after that, the New Avengers. It was such a huge shoe to fill, Everybody before that was just amazing. And then, I just came into Marvel. I wasn't even really, I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, Marvel Star Wars, actually, I wasn't really feeling too comfortable working on Marvel stuff. So, that's why it was such a huge shoot for me to feel. I feel like, wow, they trusted me on this, those books, those flagship title. So, I gave it my 110%, try my best, but I don't know how it turned out.
No,
So
it was fantastic. I mean, so after X-23, you went in straight into Uncanny X-Men, or did you do a few in between?
um, I I did Marvel Knight Spider-Man.
Oh,
That
that's cool. So now you've gone from X-23, a brand new character in the Marvel Universe, to Spider-Man to X-Men. Dude, it's like you checked all the boxes quick.
yes, Thor, Daredevil, yeah, a lot of a lot of it.
One of my favorite Marvel covers that you've done, and there's so many great ones, but you did that four cover set for Fantastic Four where it's four covers that come together
Oh,
as in one, where you have all four characters each on their own cover, but they come together as one poster. That was just, I mean, it's, I would think as a little kid, just having that poster on your wall would be epic. But
thank
anyway,
you.
so yeah, but you've done so many great things at Marvel, and then you move over to DC Comics, and you did an insane run with Green Lantern. So, were you a Green Lantern fan going into that, or did you learn about Green Lantern as you got on the job?
No, I know Green Lantern. I know. I mean, Ethan's work is incredible, amazing. Um, uh, yeah, I've known of Green Lantern, but I was hoping actually at that time that I would do s- characters that maybe like a single character book, or maybe two characters. And then they put me on Green Lantern, which I have to draw pretty much the whole universe, like all kind of color spectrum, and each color spectrum have like a gazillion characters. So yeah, it was
So with
fun.
Green Lantern, once you hit the Green Lantern core, you can't you get everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
totally.
crazy. So let's talk. I know I try to keep these to around 30 minutes, and we're right at 26 minutes. Um, I would like to talk a little bit about what you're doing now because you've created your own characters and you're doing your own books. Tell us a little bit about your company and what you're working on.
Oh yeah. So I moved to China. I moved to Australia first, and then I moved to China. I was in China for Shanghai, China for 7 years. And early on, I set up a studio there. I was working on our create-on stuff, and we also do a lot of a game project, doing content for uh, the Riot game, Garena content, their character content. So we do a lot of comics for them. And we also have our own comics. It's in Chinese, but you guys can uh, check out one of them in tapas.com. Um, it's called Hero and Shiro. So the
Hero
theme
and
is,
Shiro.
yeah, Hero and Shiro, Shero.
Okay.
So if you go to tapas.com, you could look out our uh, comics uh, under 10 comics. And then the first book that we did was it's called Generation Wu. I would try to create like a superhero universe for the Asian market. So I was incorporating the martial art theme into the Chinese hero. But I don't think you could find an English version. We don't have an English version now.
The good thing
Um,
is Google Translate works very well. So we just hold up our phones and read your comic. So
yes.
so like when you transitioned over to the Asian market exclusively and started doing books in China, how was your reception as such a legendary U.S. artist? What was the reception you received from the fans there? Did they care about the Marvel universe or the DC universe, or did they just like the new cool things you were making for their market?
They do. They do care about Marvel and DC universe, but it's only for certain fans. The majority of the fan, it's not their taste bud. They are more towards happy theme, happy story, daily life. Their pacing and the subject matter, they're all sort of different. So in the beginning, I didn't quite get it. There's a lot of things that we try to explore. But eventually, we get to understanding more and more what they like to read. And for our third comics, that they just turn into animation, a 3D animation. If you guys are interested, I don't know if you can see it here. Do you know what Bilibili is, the platform?
I personally don't, but there is so many fans here in the U.S. I'm sure that a lot of people, even if it's geo-blocked for the U.S., they're VPNing into whatever the country they can to get it.
Yeah, it's called. If you can check it out, it's Bilibili platform. It's kind of like YouTube, but in China. So maybe if there's somebody that understands Chinese, I would say in Chinese, it's called 反派初始化. So look it up if you can. It's a 3D animation. So that was our third comics that we came out with. So right now, and we're still trying to produce our own comics as well as accepting project from game company, creating. There's a game that Naruka, Blade Point. That's what we are drawing now for the comics.
So are you actually doing character designs or comic books about the game?
No, we're actually drawing comic books. If it need to be, we design it for their new characters, and then we write it, and then we work with them on the story. We write it, and then we'll draw it. We draw in color, dialogues, everything.
It's really cool to see you adapt your platforms, your art, because we talked a little bit on the phone before you decided to come into San Antonio about you're doing a lot more work digitally, and what 3D software do you use?
What software? We draw CSP, Clip Studio.
Okay.
That's what. That's what most artists draw digitally with is Clip Studio.
Clip Studio. What about does that actually do the 3D art too, or is that 2D on a computer?
No, comics we don't do 3D. We only do.
Yeah, but
2D.
what was the 3D project that you used? What did you use for that?
No. It's they turn our comics into animation.
Oh, so they took the comics and made them into a show. That's pretty cool. So basically, you created the storyboards, and then they took your art and made it. That is so cool. Well, it's a lot of artists don't adapt as new platforms come out, and I think I mentioned to you earlier, I build TV studios for a living. Work with I've done the MTV Video Music Awards, the X Games for ESPN, Miss Universe, that kind of stuff. And, there's a lot of people in various industries that learn a tool and they just stick with it, and then things change. But what I've seen that's been insane is the amount of money being spent on content around video games. And so it's exciting to see you getting into that world and working with Riot Games. They're a legend. They're the Marvel Comics of gaming, and that's really neat. And so anybody that comes to the event this weekend, you'll be able to meet Billy. Billy, do you have any parting words you'd like to discuss, or anything that I didn't ask you that you think I should have?
No, just looking forward to see everybody. It's been a really long time. I don't even remember when's the last time I picked up a pencil to draw something with a pencil and paper. So come by. Looking forward to see everybody.
Well, good. Well, thank you, Billy, for doing this video with us. Once again, I will do a shameless plug here as we close out. Billy Tan, Marvel, DC, Top Cow, and Riot Games artist. which I didn't mention before. And he'll be here at Nelco Comics this Friday, June 7th from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. And he'll also be here Saturday morning for 2 hours from 10 a.m. to noon. And then he's catching a flight back home. So get here early, be waiting in line. And if you spend $100 at the shop, Billy's going to do a free sketch, but he will also be accepting commissions. So if you do have something you would like Billy to draw for you, he can draw it. And he will have some original art for sale. And I've already gotten some emails from people that are like, is Billy bringing original art? I'm going to get there early. And then this one guy was like, don't get all the good stuff before I get there. So I can't get all the good stuff, Billy, before the customers arrive. So, but we appreciate you coming to San Antonio. A lot of people don't realize, and I will do one last little plug, San Antonio, Texas, is a very influential comic book town. Did you know Antarctic Press at all, Billy? Ninja High School, Warrior Nun, Ben Dunn is one of the artists there. Gold Digger was another book from Antarctic Press, but they're based here in San Antonio. So if you've seen Warrior Nun, so Ben is here. We've got a lot of comic book colorists that are here in San Antonio. Lee Duig. Lee actually colored a lot of work for you. Yes. And it was funny. He came by the shop last weekend, and he's like, you know what? I color so much stuff. I forget what I've done, but I was looking through it. I'm like, man, I colored a lot for Billy. So Lee's going to come by to hang out with you, and he's going to bring some of his friends. So we're going to have like an artists, colorists, creators reunion while Billy's here in San Antonio. So we're really honored to host you here and let you try some good San Antonio food. We're excited to have you in on Friday, but thank you for joining us, Billy.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. So that wraps up this segment of a special edition of the Philip Nelson Podcast with Billy Tan. Like I said, I've hyped it beyond belief. Be here next weekend to meet Billy, get some stuff signed, and we will catch you next time. And I'm going to fade out to a shameless graphic that promotes the event.
Did you say next weekend?
This weekend, everyone. Thank you, Billy. Billy is my editor as well. He will correct me when I need to be corrected. So, all right, guys, we'll see you later.